join tonight, so we are recording the meeting. So I'll go ahead and start with introducing myself. My name is Bethany Bingham. I am the Director of Professional Development and Conference Management with AAZK. So from the professional development side, I assist with finalizing or procuring and finalizing the program for the conference. And then I also help future conference hosts with all of their planning. So currently right now, I'm working with Toronto AAZK for this year's conference, obviously Akron, who will be hosting in 2023, Omaha, who will be hosting in 2024, and Phoenix, who will be hosting in 2025. So we are looking obviously for a host of the 2026 conference, and this meeting is just an opportunity for some future hosts and some past hosts. I'll let them introduce themselves to sort of share their insight, and for everybody to just network and answer questions if any come up. So I'll let Ed go next, and then we'll just kind of go around the small screen and have everybody just kind of introduce yourselves. Thank you for putting your chapter at the end of your screen name. That's helpful as well.
Hey, Ed Hansen, the CEO of AAZK, and I'm just kind of here to tackle some of the financial issues and ease some fears about what it might be to what most of the people on the screen have already experienced in their hosting of an AAZK conference.
Okay, Jill, you want to go next?
I'm out of practice. Hello, everybody. My name is Jill Werner. I'm a member of Los Angeles chapter, AAZK, and we ran last year's conference, right? Wow, it feels like it was so long ago. We were lucky enough to host last year's conference. Do you want me to just do an introduction or talk about the conference? Sorry.
No, I think that's good for now, and then we can open it up later. Jill was a co-chair with someone else who will be joining us in just a minute, so we will have both of them here for that. Christy, you're next on my screen. Hi, how are you?
Good. I'm Christy Pelker. I'm from St. Louis. I didn't really put St. Louis AAZK because I'm not really that involved anymore, but we hosted the 2015 conference.
Ooh, I'm on mute. Thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate you coming. Paul, you're next on my screen.
Yep, Paul Brandenberger. I'm the current AAZK president. I haven't been involved with hosting a conference as like a chapter one, but I'm just kind of joining to be a fly on the wall. I sometimes get it where, as president, I've had people come up to me and says what goes into putting a conference on, and I can kind of point them in a direction, but hopefully this gives me somewhat of a stronger sort of elevator conversation of exactly what goes into it, so that hopefully then I can direct them to people that can answer more thoroughly.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Frank, you're next on my screen. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hi, Frank Verney. I'm with the Lion Country Safari AAZK. I don't believe we've ever hosted a conference. So just here to just get some more information and hopefully get our chapter to host one.
That's great. Merritt.
Hi, everyone. I'm Merritt Schumacher from Rocky Mountain AAZK. We hosted in Denver in 2018.
It's good to see you. Thanks for coming tonight.
Yeah.
And Joe.
Hello, I'm Joe Nappy. I am on the National Board of Directors, and I'm also the Vice President of the New York City AAZK Chapter.
Great, thank you. All right, well, I guess, Frank, I'll put you on the spot. If you want to start, since you are the one person that's here right now that might have interest, unless someone else wants to host again in 2026. Any of you that are on the screen, don't shoot the messenger there. But Frank, if you have any burning questions, or if you just kind of want to, ask into the group or ask somebody specific or whatever.
I just want to hear what's everyone experiencing and what it is putting one together, because and so I can just give the other officers the information correctly about what it is it takes to put on a conference.
Okay. I can start the conversation and then you guys can jump in if you want. Generally, we search for the conference hosts about 3 years out. So, 3 to 4 years is what we're looking for. So that's, the 2026 timeline there is what we're looking at. That gives you 3 to 4 years for fundraising, planning, securing a hotel, working with your zoo, that sort of thing. So you have plenty of time once you have declared interest and been ratified by the membership and the board of directors as that host. You would be provided with well, let me back up just a little bit. So what you need, if you're interested, after you have all your questions answered and you think it's a go, is you would send us a letter of interest from your chapter. So we can certainly give you more information about that in terms of what would go into your letter of interest. There's some financial stuff and, some like who are your chapter members, that sort of thing. And then once the process starts and you're ratified by the membership and the board of directors, you would receive what we call the conference book, which is it's now on a USB, but mine is sitting in front of me. It's a spiral bound thing that basically gives you guidelines and policies and things that need to be followed, and guidelines, example budget, things like that. So it's basically the conference Bible. I do think that conference hosts have utilized the content in it. So we do think that it's a helpful resource. And then hopefully in the 3 to 4 years leading up to your conference, you will have one or more members that are able to attend one of the conferences leading up to that, or all of the conferences leading up to that. We sort of ask that you do a video presentation. It's an opportunity to meet face-to-face with the board of directors and myself on site, and it's an opportunity to see things in action as they're happening with that current host. So you have those sort of resources during the 3 to 4 years as you're planning, and that sort of gets you started. After that, we can talk about lots of other things, but that's just like the basic how to get started. Sam, it looks like Sam's here. Do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hold on.
You weren't ready.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Hi, sorry, I'm just leaving work right now. So I'm like, okay, I think I did all the things. Yes, hi, I'm Sam Derman. I'm from LA. I think we had the longest time to plan our conference of any chapter ever. But obviously we had other difficulties that came along with it. So, I think it was a really great experience overall. I learned a ton from it. I think our chapter really grew from it. And yeah, I'm always available for answering questions if anybody has any at any point. I don't know. I don't know what else are you looking for?
No, that's great just to start out. It's just I wanted you to say hi that you were here because everybody else has already said hi. So
Awesome.
thank you for that.
Yeah, it's nice to see you all.
Agree. Although we can't see you, we're looking at flamingos.
Yes, like I said, I'm kind of in the process of leaving work. So it would either be that or you'd be looking at the ground. So
yeah, totally fine. Flamingos are fine.
Okay.
Okay, so does anybody want to let's see, who is the furthest back? So Christy, do you want to give us your thoughts on anything about planning or fundraising or
Sure.
anything?
It's kind of hard to remember at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so kind of the main points for us, the first thing was going to the zoo. We were excited about doing it. We didn't know what was involved. If you work at kind of a bigger zoo like I do, there's a lot of red tape. So it was talking to a lot of people and getting a lot of approvals and getting approval before we did anything. But everyone was very excited and really wanted to do all the fun stuff. But really the first few years was just raising money, which we all kind of know how to do, but one of the hardest things was people wanted to jump in and do things, and it was great. And we had that all lined up for people to do things. But until you get to like the last year, there's not a lot for people to do besides raise money. But I do think it was a great professional development opportunity because a lot of us had never done anything like that before. Kind of helps you learn how to manage a budget, manage people, all that kind of stuff. At our zoo, I don't know how other zoos do it, but our zoo kind of paired us up with our different committees and subcommittees with people at the zoo. So like the people in charge of our budget were paired up with people who worked in finance, so they could show us how to do spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. And we actually had one of the zoo's events planners at the time to help us because like we didn't know what was involved with an event. And then the biggest part was just finding, do you have a venue to do this? Like that's kind of either a yes or no, like either you have a hotel in your area that can accommodate you at a reasonable price in a safe area, or you don't. So that's kind of one of the very first things we did. And luckily our event planner had, relationships with those people already. So she could say like, this is what we're looking for. This is not people coming from your normal conferences, a lot of people coming from big companies who are willing to pay a lot of money for their people to, have their own rooms and, eat there and that kind of stuff. We kind of had to say, this is different. There's probably going to be multiple people in a room, which they don't see in a lot of professional conferences. And can you accommodate that? And then just kind of deciding what was important to us. I think it helped that I had been to a lot of conferences. So some of the things that were important was I hated a few conferences I went to where it was like, okay, you have a 30-minute break between papers and it's lunchtime, but nothing was walkable, and anything that was walkable, everybody was in the same line, everyone from the AAZK conference, and they couldn't. So one of my priorities was having as many meals provided with your registration as possible. Because I think that makes a better experience for people. And when people are spending their own money, those things are provided and they don't have to go out and spend more money, and they could get as much out of the conference as possible. But your conference, you might have something completely different that's important to you. Yeah, I think that's the major things for me.
Okay. You bring up a good point, Christy, in that we are sort of a unique conference. So if you're thinking about hosting a conference, some of the first research you're going to do is a hotel. And what size is the hotel? Where is it located in proximity to the zoo, possibly the airport, other transportation pieces, obviously places to feed yourself and get beverages. But we are a unique size. Christy mentioned that zookeepers and zoo personnel tend to have no issue bunking with each other in a room. So you could have sometimes 2 to 6 people in a room, which is a challenge when you're setting up a room block with the hotel. Our attendance on average, I'd say, is 300 to 250 to 300 people, but then you have to dial that down to multiple people in a room, right? So it's a weird room block for a hotel based on how much food and beverage we might consume, and also based on the large amount of room space that we require. So we do require the main ballroom, obviously, for like our main presentations, and then we require 4 breakout rooms that hold 50, like an average of 50 people, 40 to 60 people. And then we require a room for our exhibitors and a space to display posters, which can be sort of, moved around. But 4 breakout rooms of that size plus a ballroom, like that's a pretty decent space, especially if the hotel has other programming going on and we have a small room block. So it presents a unique conversation when you're looking for a hotel. So that was a good point to bring up, Christy. Merritt, do you want to kind of give us your thoughts on stuff? Again, Merritt was one of the co-chairs from Denver in 2018.
Everything that Christy said was something that we also took into consideration too. We definitely worked really hard to have a good relationship with our zoo and made sure that they were really supporting us. I feel like they were one of our biggest sponsors, which was really nice. Then the biggest thing I think too was we had a huge committee and made sure that we had people that could do any job, and that was their role the entire time. And I think that really helped out that we were able to delegate different things. And I felt like we were more efficient that way as well. So everybody had their own thing that they were working on. And then we were basically just checking in on them, making sure things that were going well, different avenues that we could help them out. We also wanted to do things different. So we were pretty creative with our conference and the things that we wanted. And we definitely looked at other people's conferences to help us out to see what we wanted to. Fundraising is huge. And I think that was the biggest thing. And definitely as we got closer, it was oh my gosh, can we afford this? No, let's see other ways that we can either cut costs or find different ways that we could make sure our delegates had a really great conference.
Okay, thank you. So Sam and Jill, who wants to go first?
I can. I don't know if she's still walking.
Okay.
So I agree with what everyone said. And if you're, well, I guess it's just frank to you, but if you're considering it, you should go for it. I think it is the craziest, but the best thing you will do as a chapter, and as, you know, a group of people that just can bond together over something that turns out like it's, I equated it to planning a wedding. I don't know if you've ever done that, but it's really the same, because like you do all of this work and you put all of this, you know, love and care and stuff into it. And then there's these big gaps of time. And then at the very end, you run around like a complete crazy person, don't realize what happened until, in my case, like a month later, I went, wow, that was the coolest thing I've ever done. So our experience, like Sam said, and she can talk more about that, was unique because, you know, this thing called COVID, but same thing, you know, if I'm still totally passionate about conferences and doing conferences and planning, so I'm always available if anyone has questions or anything. And I think, yeah, fundraising, like, oh yeah, everybody kind of hit the points, I think. Sam? If she's around?
Maybe not. Well, I'll go until we get Sam back.
She'll come back.
I kind of forget that I was also a conference co-chair. I am the one that goes and bring this back. I am part of the Utah chapter of AAZK in Salt Lake City. What I know, you can also share if you'd like. I'm looking at Ed shaking his head. So we hosted the one and only time that the conference has been in Salt Lake City. We hosted in 2008. Things have changed a lot since then. Meaning programming, conference programming has changed a lot since then. That's kind of when it was starting to change into this workshop format, and professional certificate course offerings, and kind of how we offered opportunities to the delegates. So that was a pretty exciting time. I can't speak much for the program because I did a lot more of the, you know, communication, fundraising, general planning, all the things as the co-chair. But I will say that having a strong committee and, you know, making an effort to keep them engaged and in position the whole time for the 3 years leading up to it is really good, and really good communication. I mean, we had quite a strategy for meeting that, you know, basically increased in the last year. It was, you know, say once a month, and then it was once every 2 weeks, and then it was once a week. And then, you know, so we, you know, had a really long timeline to look at. We had support from our zoo to have meetings on zoo time, on zoo grounds, as needed. And they knew the frequency of those would increase as we got closer. A good relationship with the zoo's marketing and communication team, and possibly the development team in terms of reaching out to donors. It's also nice if you have a good relationship with a volunteer group or a docent group that might be at your facility, because you will need volunteers outside of your committee to help with things, especially on zoo day, also at the hotel during the week. So, you know, it's something that as you're looking at putting into host, you know, you want to know who your people are. You want to know kind of where your institution might sit. You want to know how your chapter's doing financially. Another thing that I would say about fundraising, to piggyback on what these guys are saying, you may have to look at your current fundraisers. Like, say you have some really strong fundraisers that work for your chapter, and you may have to reinvent them, or you may have to pivot them to look slightly different for those 3 years. And I mean, one example is a lot of people change their Bowling for Rhinos event, or they don't do it for a year, or they just have to modify like how their chapter does like their standard event stuff. So, you know, just kind of think about that. If there's things that your chapter really likes to do and they're real cornerstone pieces of your chapter, they might just have to be modified or take a back seat 1 year or a couple of years or whatever, and then you come back around to them and talk about that, because that might be, people might be passionate about how that might affect things. So yeah, I guess that's my 2 cents. Ed, would you like to give 2 cents about hosting a chapter or hosting a conference?
No, that's just ancient history. There's nothing that I can contribute from the dark ages that's going to move this conversation forward. So,
Do you want to give us a financial kind of snapshot of what we, like an average or whatever?
well, I mean,
It's hard.
every conference is so different. And the thing that I like to put forth to make sure that everybody understands things is that there are active chapters, there are active wealthy chapters, and there are small chapters who dream and tackle big projects. And AAZK's role in this is to make any of that come true. And so over the course of time, we've built in must-haves in the program, and then what you can afford in the program. And so we try and let you, as the host chapter, dictate how much fundraising you want to do as to how much money you want to spend. And it's really great. Like Christy said, to supply meals to everybody, but we don't require that. And all we basically require is a roof over our heads, rooms to hold the meetings, a day at the zoo, and a banquet. Everything else that's provided is based upon your budget and how you fundraise. So the only compulsory items are those that I just listed. Again, it's a roof, a meal, and a zoo. It's just that simple. The other thing that chapters have a tendency to do is that we have to outdo those that have gone before us. We're going to make this bigger and better. And I always repeat myself numerous times that chapters don't have to be bigger and better, because bigger and better is expensive. And bigger and better, if you have a relationship with your zoo where they're going to step in and help you financially, then bigger can be better. But that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for simplicity, which is a roof, some AV equipment, which is spendy, and a couple other things, and let you fundraise and dictate where that goes and how it goes. Some cities are affordable, some cities are not affordable to the market, but you know your cities better than I do. And so having to be exactly right in the city is not something that we require either. It just raises your transportation costs to move them a little farther if you're in the suburbs, to move them inner city to go to the zoo, or vice versa. So what I'm trying to say here, and then I'll let everybody else chime in, is that AAZK's role here is to be flexible. And we're here to answer your questions, provide you the most assistance that we can. There's an incredible amount of knowledge in AAZK and on the board of directors about how we can tailor a conference to fit both our needs and your chapter's enthusiasm.
So Frank, we'll come back to you. Do you have any, do you have any questions after that?
Not a lot. So, so with the fundraising, what are we fundraising for? Are we paying? I mean, we're paying for the hotel. I mean, what's the fundraising for?
Anybody want to answer?
Jill's right.
I'm like, I can answer that. So like Ed said, I think Ed broke it down really well of what the basics are that you need. So you're going to need, support from your zoo, because there's obviously costs that go with the zoo day, right? So it really depends on, I think I'm correct that we probably had one of the crazier budgets, I think, in conference history, but in our case, it's because we had to go hybrid. So your AV and your media, that's a lot of money. Hotel costs, the hotel itself, if you can negotiate your contract well, shouldn't actually really cost you, the chapter, a ton of money. I think your costs with hotel are negligible if, you know, you can negotiate a contract because you've got the meeting space and stuff, right? So it just really, that all depends on how the hotel does that. And then your food and beverage is going to be another big, I think, probably big chunk. We chose to go whole hog because we could, and we had a very healthy budget, and do like what Christy said, and, you know, let's give people as much of the food and stuff as they can, because LA is expensive, it's expensive, etc. I'm not sure what city you're in, but and I think, like, from a fundraising thing, and then of course, you know, we do auctions. I don't know if you've been to a conference, but you can make money. There's places you can make money on the conference. Not only you get your delegate fees and stuff, but you can do an auction, you can make money that way. But I know the fundraising is the most daunting thing. Again, we were just super fortunate that we are in a city where we have big donors and we can do it. But even then, I think if you just do as much little stuff as you can, it can build up to a big enough and a healthy enough budget. And one thing I did want to say, just to anyone considering, the support from AAZK, from Bethany, from Ed, I mean, it's just like, it's there, like they answer your questions. There's so many people. I've never felt like I was like, oh my gosh, we're out here hung to dry. So I think that was a big thing I wanted to just point out, like, you have the support, and as long as you can get your chapter on board and your zoo on board, you know, I think it's, I'm going to say easy. People might not agree with that, but I think I hit most of the, I think that's mostly what the money cost is.
Before we break there, I'm just going to chime in and say that AAZK advocates basically zero-based budgeting. And what we do is we'll guide you through the process of setting a registration fee for each delegate, and then helping you build a budget that is going to chip away at that number. So transportation is going to cost X, and you subtract that from the per delegate number, their registration number. And Zoo Day is going to cost X, and you're going to subtract that. And AV is going to cost this, and you subtract that. And hopefully what happens is we don't go this way. We go right in here. So depending upon which side of that you fall, that's what you're fundraising for. You're trying to take it and turn it into here, or you're trying to make it so that you turn a profit. The more you fundraise, the more profit you're going to have when this is all over and done.
One thing, so Joe, I just want to ask, are you, I know you're on the board, but are you here representing New York AAZK in terms of possibly hosting as well? Because I don't want to leave you out in terms of asking questions. I know you as the board member, so if you have questions in terms of hosting a conference, please chime in as well. I don't mean to just keep picking on Frank.
All good. Yeah, also representing New York City AAZK. I would like to host. I guess one of my biggest questions besides fundraising is how do you have those tough conversations with your managers that are afraid to host something like this? Like, New York is super tricky, and we just, you know, WCS generally doesn't host conferences because New York is like a quagmire of multiple airports, and it's just crazy hotels. And so, like, was there any strategies to like kind of get your zoos on board?
Well, the big thing with New York, Joe, is that, like, I need to tell you this, is that we'll never see the delegates in a paper session. Because with, you know, 4 zoos and an aquarium within literal spitting distance, they're going to be out there doing stuff. But it is what it is. And of course, the biggest, I mean, you have to sit down with Jim and say, all we need, for the very least, all we need is that if we dig a big hole, can you help us get out of that hole? That's what we ask hosts to do, is to work in partnership and bring their financial people in to guide you a little bit. And again, it's based upon what a delegate's going to pay to go to the conference, based upon what you wish to present to them. So if you guys go large and go big, and that gap is here. Someone, and it will be, if it really goes bad, it will be AAZK that steps in and fills that gap. But you also want to be perfectly honest with your management, whether it be, all I can think of is Mr. Kramer. I can't think of the new guy's name, Frank. But all you have to do is go in and sit down and tell them, we don't do this like AZA does, or we don't do this like ZAA does. It's not a financial burden on the institution. It's a financial burden, if you will, to use that statement. It's on the backs of the delegate because they pay, and we try and equate those expenses as to what they pay. And it's as simple as that. All we ask for is zoo day, which you let them in a gate, hopefully for free. Maybe you can feed them lunch. Excuse me. Maybe the facility can feed them lunch and give them a discount at the gift shop, and everybody goes home happy. That's the only thing we really truly ask of our host facilities. Now, New York being the proverbial different animal, there's a bunch of host facilities there. And so whether this is a Bronx thing or whether you're just going to bring in some of the other groups, because there's at least one other chapter in that consortium. I think there's just one other one, but
Yes,
our membership, institutional memberships, I believe there's 3 out of 5. So, that would take some strategizing on your part as to how you would go to the head of the group and say, this is what we're looking at doing. And then, at least your post-conference and pre-conference trips ain't going to be expensive, because just take the cab or the bus and go. But other than that, I mean, we like to tell people to have an initial meeting and say you're considering it. The worst thing you can do, which has happened before, is to say, oh, by the way, we bid on the conference. Just thought I'd let you know. That doesn't work. So go in partnership, but go with, we don't have a clear financial picture, but we know that it's not up to the zoo to write us a check. Whether that be Bronx or whether it be Lion Country Safari. That's not their job, is to write us a blank check and then we just pile on with that. So again, we try zero-based budgeting, and we try and make it worth the experience. Is basically on the backs of the delegate financially, and then it's up to us to provide and fulfill that experience. They don't need to have a meal at every break and free food and this, but if you fundraise and you can do that, or if you can find sponsors, that's absolutely wonderful and appreciated.
Sam has her hand raised. I think she has a comment.
Yeah, I don't know what your guys' fundraising potential is like. Obviously, us going in and presenting it to management at the LA Zoo was fairly straightforward for us because we had already raised so much money for BFR, so we had a really good basis to kind of show to that to be independent. So depending on how you guys feel like your fundraising is going in your chapter, you can use that as sort of evidence of the fact that you'll be able to do it. I also went in with a lot of estimates for things to my director. I went to our SSA, who do the concessions at our zoo, and I said, how much would it be for lunch for this many people? And we sort of put a rough budget together to begin with and said, look, we fundraise for BFR every year. We can get this much. We feel like with this many years, if we raise this much every year, we feel like we'll hit it. You just want to be really organized and give them the confidence that they're not going to need to write a check at the end of it, So just do your homework and be really prepared, because obviously zoo directors are used to having these kinds of meetings all the time, and we're not, right? So you really want to go in as savvy as you possibly can be, so that the first time you meet with them, they have the confidence that you're going to pull it off. And I can share some of those preliminary documents that we put together for our zoo director to really help get on board with it. But yeah, it does take a certain amount of trust on their part to have you guys pull it off. And obviously it behooves them to give you their resources too, so that they don't end up having to write a check at the end of it. So, so yeah, I would say, make sure that the person that's doing the discussion with your director, has a good relationship with them, can speak very confidently, and, will give them, every confidence that you'll be able to pull it off, you in the chapter. And I would say even coming with like a certain number of people involved, we've got 10 people that are committed, and they're going to have to sign something that says that they're committed to pulling the conference off. That's the other thing too, is like, they know how people can be wishy-washy with stuff. So if you can say like, I know for sure that these people are going to be committed, I think that goes a long way. So yeah, if you guys want any of that information, I'm happy to share it.
Thanks, Sam. Any other other questions that have come up? Frank,
Yeah, I have
Joe?
a question. I have a question for Frank. If you ask me, and put a map in front of me, I don't think I could find Luxahatchee on a bet. Can you tell me where it is?
It's west of I-95 in West Palm Beach. So we're pretty much, like, I would say 20 minutes to 25 minutes away from the Palm Beach airport. I know if we do this, I would probably have to get even add charter buses to it, because we are a drive-through safari, the first part, and then the second part is a walkthrough. So we have 2 parks in one. So I don't know, I mean, if any other conferences had rental cars in their budget or anything?
So real quick, I realized when I was telling you our budget, that was the one thing that I did forget was transportation. We ended up not using it because of the way our conference went, but when we had the original conference planned, we did find a really good transportation company, and we kind of actually played a couple companies off of each other, and it worked really well to our advantage. But yeah, I think most conferences end up with some kind of a transportation budget. So you would consider that.
And whether you be Lion Country Safari or you be New York City, you're going to get, just based on the geographic location, you're going to get a ton of people coming in just for the day. So they're going to come in maybe for a paper session on the day before Zoo Day, spend the night, and go to the zoo the next day. So to answer your question, yeah, there's going to be some bus transportation issues. There's certainly going to be a ton of rental car issues in Florida as people come from all over the state and beyond within driving distance there. So, and, other than parking in New York City, probably the same thing. Because you guys are basically, I couldn't even begin to think how many institutions are within 3 hours or 4 hours. But with Akron this year, there's going to, or next year, there's going to be a huge influx of regional attendance because of what's so close. And that's also very hard to build your budget on. And it kind of skews when we start talking about, a weekly registration fee at 300 plus by the time 2026 rolls around, as opposed to $100 a day. And what we would then look at for someplace like Lion Country or New York is making sure we jack up that daily rate so that we take advantage of those people that are coming in just for the day or two to, get a taste of the program and go to Zoo Day.
I know with us, and any other zoos, have you guys done zoo days, even though you're hosting it, but done a zoo day at another zoo? Because like with Lion Country, we have Palm Beach Zoo, that's literally 20 minutes away from us. And then we have Zoo Miami, which is an hour away from us.
So back when they invented the wheel, we actually shared the hosting duties on Zoo Day for a town that has 500,000 people. We have 2 zoos in this town. So we shared the hosting duties with another facility, and we bussed them out there and then bussed them to the zoo and fed them dinner and sent them on their way. So yeah, it's not unprecedented. Okay. But again, it makes sure, and there's nothing that says Zoo Day has to be a day. If it's a half day, that's fine too. You just punch in more programming or you turn people loose to go on their own. But again, kind of like New York City, it makes your opportunities for post-conference and pre-conference trips extremely affordable. And I'm preaching to the proverbial choir here, but all keepers want to do when they go to an AAZK conference is cram as much animal FaceTime in as they can. It's as simple as that. They want to learn and they want to see and learn and see and learn.
So as an example, what we did in Salt Lake, so our hotel was downtown. None of this is very far away, but we had buses on Zoo Day that ran to the Tracy Aviary. If you wanted to go spend a couple of hours there in the morning, they offered a breakfast and a bird show, and then you could go through the Tracy Aviary, which is fairly small. And then the same buses then bus them up to the zoo. And we offered lunch right when people got there. And then they had Zoo Day, which led into dinner and the silent auction all in one place. So they had plenty of time to do Zoo Day in a good half a day at the end. And then they also saw the other facility in the morning, or they could have skipped the morning and just gotten the bus from the hotel to go up to the zoo for the afternoon. Relatively close together. Not huge facilities, but that's just another example. And when we use the transportation kind of on a loop at different times, strategized, how many people we were moving.
So I actually have to head out, but just so it's sort of on tape and can be talked about, if other chapters down the line are interested in this. Two of the questions that I tend to get from a lot of people when they're like asking me about the conference stuff is what they were, because I was thinking about how I need to head out. One was sort of what's a rough number of people that is sort of a good number to have on like your committee, because a lot of chapters talk about their struggle is, they have their officers and they're the only people who are really involved. So it's just sort of figuring out what that number is. And then the other big question I hear from a lot of them is, they don't necessarily take the step to show any interest because they're not sure what sort of research to do beforehand. Like I know you guys kind of talked about whether hotels are an option or stuff like that, just sort of a general idea of, what are like some things that they should look into before they can even know if they're in the ballpark to express interest. So those are the two questions. Sorry, I have to head out because I have to pick someone up from the airport, but nice seeing everyone.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, well, we've got about 10-ish, 10, 15 minutes left. So anybody else have anything they want to share? Any other questions?
Yeah, I'll just chime in again. So again, I'm kind of speaking to Joe and Frank here. You also have the benefit of, you have other chapters that you literally can reach out and touch in your regions. There's an inactive chapter at Palm Beach. I don't know where they're going to go. Tampa's got a chapter, Miami's got a chapter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Joe, I don't need to tell you, but there's at least 3 chapters in Jersey. There's one in Philadelphia, and one in Elmwood Park, and on it goes. So not only are you reaching out as far as pre and post conference trips, but you can partner with these folks as far as some fundraising financing goes as well. And you can bring them into that picture. The other thing that you'll take advantage of, and these folks will nod their heads, is chapter challenges, getting support from chapters across North America for your fundraising goals, things like that. And so from previous hosts and future hosts, they can be very, very generous, especially when they've been through what can become sometimes a painful and confusing process. But AAZK chapters are very, very generous with their time, their expertise, and even some of the funds that they have raised in the past. Most of the conferences that we have held have been static as far as profit or turned very healthy profits. And that goes a long way to stabilizing the chapter far into the future And then you can do things like fund grants and fund continuing education for your chapter and things like that. So both of the interested parties here that are mulling this over, you've got considerable resources in your own backyards as well. Can it be complicated bringing other chapters in? Certain, but as long as you lay the ground rules out from the very get-go, just like you would do in speaking with your directors or CEOs, and lay the groundwork out as you know it, then that prevents or lessens tensions building into the future.
Actually, that's very,
I also want to say, oh, go ahead.
no, it's actually, Ed, that's really great advice. And it's cool that I'm actually doing that already. We are partnering with 5 other zoos in Florida, and we're working on a project together to save Florida panthers and manatees. So we already I got that step ahead already checked in, and we're working on that. So that's pretty cool you brought that up, because we are working together. I think it was just Zoo Tampa and Palm Beach Zoo, because they're inactive. We're the only 2 chapters not involved, but the other chapters are all involved in this. We're calling it Keep Florida Wild. That's our project logo.
Awesome.
I
I did
just
just,
wanted to say,
oh,
like,
go ahead.
don't underestimate the power of Ed and Bethany. They got us through a really, really tough time, and we, creatively put our heads together and we did it. So I feel like if we could do that, you guys should have no problems. And then you've got all of the other chapters, obviously, that have hosted in the past to help. So.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sam. On the heels of that, I just put my email and Ed's email in the chat. So Frank, you can reach out if you have questions. I think everybody else probably knows how to get in touch with us, because I got in touch with you. But any questions you have, or if there's anyone else that has any questions that couldn't be here tonight that comes up in conversation from any of you, like I said, I know there were a few people that reached out that said that they had some other engagements tonight, but they wanted to have it recorded so that they could go back and have access to it if possible. If it's helpful to do another one of these, Ed and I are always happy to put something together, or we could do a phone call. We're happy to talk to people at your facility or your chapter. Whatever will help answer your questions, and maybe generate some interest in hosting a conference. Again, we're looking for the 2026 host. So at this point, you've got 4 years to think about that, or to work on it, not to think about it. Sorry. We would like you to think about it right now. So yeah, anybody have anything else?
I just want to say thank you guys. It was very informative. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, because I literally have most of the things checked off. The zoo supports us, management supports us. It's just getting them to commit to doing the conference, and my officer. I'm the wild child of the officers. I'm the one.
Oh, you muted yourself.
Sorry. I'm just the crazy child of the officers. I'm the one that just does everything, and you just follow my lead. And they're like, okay. And then they're like, wow, Frank, that was crazy. But I pretty much have just all the support. It just get them to agree to do it. And we would love to host 2026. So I'm going to go and try and, give my puppy eyes and see if, they will all say yes. And the officers be like, Frank, really? This is another crazy one of your ideas. Hey, it worked. Come on, let's do it, guys.
Frank, you're my spirit animal. I'm with you on that. I do crazy things, and it's tough, but it's a growing experience, and you learn a ton from it. And yeah, I totally relate to that.
Yeah, so just trying to get them to agree, because like you said, changing bowling for rhinos, we did, because we didn't have a bowling alley, so we did driving for rhinos. Got 180 people, which is the biggest turnout ever in our chapter history. So it was very stressful to put that thing in it, but we did it, and everybody was like, there goes that crazy guy, and there's the crazy man. So yeah,
That's what it takes, though. Like Sam said, I mean, I was a board member for 10 years because nobody else would be treasurer, and I just did it. We just made it happen.
So Frank, if you want to reach out to Ed and myself, just kind of let us know what you're thinking. If you need any additional information, if you think you are, if that is something that you're going to be approaching, we're happy to help. Anything that helps tie that up with you, or, like I said, we could meet with anybody that you have that wasn't able to join us tonight that might have questions. So
yeah, definitely. I'll ask them, and we'll probably ask for like a Zoom meeting or call just to get more information, because I know our CEO, he's very detail oriented. Our vice president, she's cool, but he wants to know like every single dots that are dotted, T's that are everything. So I know he'll be the one that probably wants to have a meeting just to discuss it even further and get questions asked.
Okay. Well, it was great to see everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was great to see the past hosts and some new faces. So, you know, if we need to get together again, I might reach out to some of you again to ask for maybe some old documents or answer some questions or whatever. But it was great to see you and have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
You.
Night.